one nation, under God.
Roll call, we'll start with. You're
Marty Tar,
Dale Cook.
Drew Martin.
James Tyler. Agenda,
Motion that?
And I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Don't see any public to comment. Okay,
You just have
next
to-
is the approval of the minutes for the November 15th, 2022 meeting.
Move to approve the minutes of the November 15th, 2022 meeting.
where are the minutes? Is that, where are the minutes?
Got sent out.
I have a copy if you want to look at it.
May I see that, because I,
Okay, here's a,
I believe that's where I read it on the internet.
Unanimous?
somebody go to,
I seconded it, so we just need a unanimous.
All in
It's been
favor?
moved and seconded. Aye.
I. A copy of that, could you send that to me maybe?
Sure.
Because I do not have a copy of it.
It's online too.
Okay, because we had, there was a discussion about it, and I see that it's there, but I just would like to have it.
we have a list, a number of items here to discuss. RV Engineers is the guest of honor. He's going to tell us about the different proposals to replace the flat valves in the Reed Avenue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tyler. So, with regard to your agenda, I guess.
Before you get too far along, you got a whole string of items that you're the star witness.
Yeah, I got like half the alphabet here.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment first before we start?
Oh,
No, I wanted to make a comment before we started
go
this,
go ahead,
if that's okay.
go ahead.
So back in November, I was asked by the committee to put together a list of priority of projects for infrastructure. I did that and I sent them to you. They were replace the tidal flaps on Reed Avenue, finish phase 1 of the storm drain, refits in the north end of town, evaluate the storm drains from Rodney Street to Collins Street down to Anchor Way, repair the wall at Bayard Avenue Pump Station, and obtain an estimate to raise the crown on New Orleans Street to ensure proper drainage. For New Orleans Street, I've met that. CTF funding from Speaker Schwarzkopf is going to enable me to raise the crown on New Orleans Street and repave it for proper draining. I've been able to do that. On the other items we have here, we have estimates from our engineer who's here to present them today. There was one thing that came up unexpectedly. New Year's Eve, we got a sinkhole on Bellevue Street. It's very small, but it can get larger. It is from a collapsed cement storm drain on Bellevue. That's gonna need to be repaired. It's off in the right of way where cars park, but we are gonna need to address it probably before April, because if not, cars are gonna hit it. Right now, it's marked with a cone, but we need to repair that. I have gotten an estimate from RV on that. That's one of the estimates that's here today, but it is not on my list. I just wanted to make sure why. It just happened, just in the last week and a half. Okay, so from that, there's only one other comment. We did get $22,300 to make repairs and upgrades at Sunset Park from DENREC. We will be using that money to redo the gazebo and put an ADA ramp into the park. And also, I was on today with the Chesapeake Watershed Grant Association to try to get money for Sunset Park also, and to repave Hayden Street with a permeable type of asphalt. They have to wait and see if that would be something the grant I could apply for, and I hope to know that. And if they do, I am going to try to get that street repaved. That's all I have before we go to the engineer.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Yep.
I would also, Mr. Chairman, remind everybody that most of the streets in Dewey belong to the state. They're supposed to pay for them. They were in the habit before, when one of our previous town managers would really knew them and would talk to them, knew also some of the pavers, and they would have the town run the grant, or they would get the money from the state to do the particular roads, and the town would run it. And the state liked that because it got it off their back. So, but we should not be shocked that the state ought to be paying for the repairs of the most of the road.
I don't know if they would have repaired New Orleans Street unless we actually made this concerted effort.
I think, I apologize for interrupting you. I think you did a great job because you pushed them to do it. You know, but it's their road, they need to pay for them. And if we're the ones that are being the contractor, that's fine. You know, but you've done a great job at that. But we have to understand it belongs to the state and they need to repair them. And when they were pushed to do it before in a friendly way, they finally did it, so.
I've tried with our local Del Dot
And
rep
you're
on
doing
New
it.
Orleans Street, and it didn't work, so then the CTF funds became available and I applied for them.
By the way, on that note, Bill, did you get the funds, or you don't know yet?
We will get the funds, and I'll talk to you afterwards about it.
Okay, because to that note, our proposal included a total recall properly, just, so it wouldn't fail again. But with that, do you want me to start on item A?
That's up to the chair.
Okay,
Mr.
Reed
Tyler?
Avenue.
Do you want me, Reed Avenue, okay, so item A here. At Reed Ave Bayside outfall, project cost estimated to be around $30,000. So, to Bill's point, yes, working with SPS, we did prepare for that work. And just to refresh everybody's memory, we did meet on site at Reed Avenue, I think the committee, late last year, around the holidays. And with the town of Dewey Beach, with Remington and Vernon Life Services, SPS. What we discussed doing was remove the existing so our proposal would be remove the valves. We did put in another option if that we deemed necessary to replace operational valves, flapper valves at the end of those existing 36-inch plastic CMP pipes. That would be an option that the town could do. However, we discussed just remove them, reconfigure the riprap, which included extending it out. I think it was to another piling of the existing pier that went out there. We're going to extend it out and just monitor that situation, removing the valves and reconfiguring that riprap to see how that would perform. If we had to opt to put in the valves, that could be done again on the exterior at a later date. So, and I'm not sure if this was shared with the committee, Bill, but what we talked about doing, and if I may, and I'll walk around, As you well know, at the end of Reed Street, we're talking about the existing situation with the 3 outfalls. In fact, I think only one or one and a half of them are actually operational right now. There's one totally filled with sand. So one of the things that we're discussing doing, let me read my proposal here. So the red area here at the end of Reed would be the area of, shows the rebuilding of the canoe path. So I know that's kind of in disarray. If you remember that fabric, and we're really going to put an emphasis on, if you recall last year, we did some stopgap measures. We really didn't finish the job. We just stabilized it so we can reconvene it properly. Because again, this was not a great design, as we all agreed on. So one of the things that we wanted to do was, at the end here, this red area was basically to repair the canoe path at the end of Reed, which is in a little bit of a disarray. The other area, which is shown in green, the green shows the riprap repair. And what we're planning on doing is, again, after we remove the, oh, good, if you have a copy. After we remove the flapper valve, what we wanted to do was obviously excavate and clean out the riprap and the sand that's obviously clogging the 3 36-inch outfall pipes. Then what we wanted to do was, right now your riprap kind of ends here. We're talking about coming up, the next pier or piling for this dock is up around this area. We want to extend the riprap up to this point, but create what's known as a series of baffles. So what would happen is, it would just be below the breakwater, just be below the water, the mean water elevation. But what would happen is, if any storm surge or any sand would then be caught up in these baffles, you'll still allow water to channel through here, but it would be detained or for the most part kept off of the outfalls of those 3 outfall pipes, which obviously is not working now. By extending that out, repairing the canoe path, and again, they would be just below the mean high water, so you still allow tidal flow to go over the walls because it'd just be below, but also create, like I said, that baffle effect, which would detain the sand and prevent it for as much as possible away from the mouth of those 3 outfalls. It's what we feel should have been the design in the beginning. You recall, just for historical purposes, when we were doing the relining along Reed Street, we actually stopped at that new box, which was put in by the prior consultant and that new configuration done. So we thought, great, you have a brand new outfall, brand new box, we're gonna reline brand new line pipes, it's gonna be the best street in Dewey. Well, it turned out this had failed in that following winter. I think you got slammed with a good nor'easter there, Bill, and it really clogged the thing up. So that was our proposal. We met on, the town agreed, the committee, I believe, agreed with that configuration. We would monitor the performance of that riprap configuration without valves to see because right now what's happening is the valves are on the inside of that chamber box. When they're closed and that sand got in, it forced them closed. They're not totally closed, but they're probably maybe 3 or 4 inches open, but it's obviously not enough to do its job. So it's probably preventing any bay water from coming up, but when you get a strong storm, as you guys can all relate to, it takes forever for that water to finally percolate out and get back and drain and dry out the end of Reed Street. So with all of that too would be a full restoration of that beach area, again extending that canoe launch area and basically putting it back the way it was, and then just monitoring. But we feel if we can keep the sand away, that's more than half the battle right off the bat. If we find after a half year to a year's time, and before I move on, that's predicated on the town making sure that they keep the pipes clean. And Bill, you, me, and Jim talked about that.
Sorry, say that again?
This is all predicated on proper maintenance and jetting out those
Purpose, Todd,
pipes.
I'd like to interrupt you for a minute.
Sure.
Everything that's, all the clogging of the valves, all the failure of the valves for many years has been because of lack of maintenance.
None of this works unless it's
And
maintained.
the town just doesn't have the maintenance people to be able to do it all. I mean, we've got a town that should have 4 maintenance people, has 2, and only has 2 because the town manager forced the issue. So none of this works if we don't maintain it.
It's
And
like changing
the
the oil in
flapper
a car,
valves
yeah.
would work if we'd maintained them.
Yep, I would agree with that, that if you were to jet that area out, clean the sand and the debris out of those pipes, the flapper valves probably would have performed better, because right now they're all silted and clogged shut because of the debris and the sand from those storm surges. That's why, because to that fact, and I think we discussed it on site, was removing the valves, reconfiguring the riprap situation to see if that may mitigate some of that problem. But again, I don't think, because of the nature of what this is and where it is, you can't just, like, as they say, set it and forget it. I think like I was using the analogy before. I buy a new car with fresh oil, that doesn't mean I have to change the oil. You have to, or the engine will fail, it will seize. You'll have to clean this out, whether you have the flapper valves there or not. And to that point, I think we believe it's a better design to put the valves on the outside where you can see them, maintain them. They won't get closed shut on the inside, where it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't know what's going on. They crawled in there and they actually confirmed that they were shut. So there's an option in there that if you want to purchase them, we need to purchase them, we can. But this proposal is more for riprap, extending it, reconfiguring it, doing the cleanup, removing the valves, and restoring the launch and the rest of that beach area. In our opinion, that's what should have been done from day one. But if you're going to do valves, don't put them on the inside. They should be on the outside where you can see them, you can see if they fail, and address a problem because it's visible. That is our proposal. We believe, and again, the town agreed at the time when we met on site, right, Bill?
Right.
That the reconfigured riprap, extending it, putting in those baffles, and basically repairing that beach area, what was the first step.
Your proposal says remove and replace flat valves at Reed Avenue, Bayside Outfall Project cost $36,000. At least that's what we have on our agenda item. That's what we wrote up on the agenda item.
Ways to clean all silt, debris, and storm sewer from.
Yeah, but I mean,
Clean silt debris from sewer
Cut
inlet
and remove
reeds.
flat.
We will cut and remove flapper valves that are stuck inside the pipes. Upon completion, we'll then install riprap along the bay pier per the attached drawing. SPS will not demobilize until all restoration work is complete and approved by RB&E. Work may include an excavator, back truck, televised van.
I misspoke. Your proposal does not say replace.
It does
The
not.
agenda item says replace.
Yeah, it was to.
I came in thinking, that's a great price, we ought to do this. Now I'm,
It was not to, in fact, we were, and Bill had me stop that order until we had that meeting on site,
gotcha.
because, you know, we didn't want to perpetuate it.
The right thing to do, yeah.
Yeah, so, which was good, because I think you would have been on the hook for about 20 grand, so we didn't want to do that. So we stopped the order. You still can order them if need be, but the riprap's an issue either way, because what was done prior did not work, because the silt came in and the sand came in and clogged the pipes anyway. But if we find, in addition to that riprap reconfiguration repair, that flapper valves would be required, they could be like an added option, and then can be installed at a later date. But we, again, at the
But
direction
we
of the
would
town.
remove the old ones.
We're gonna remove the old ones,
Yeah.
put in the new riprap, monitor. And if we feel, in addition to that, valve required, because it's letting bay water in and it's not letting, rainwater runoff out, you can always come back and reinstall that. But either way, the riprap is an issue. So that was our proposal for.
It will be very interesting to see how it performs with no valves. See if there's any difference, because I was around before the valves. So
Right.
with the valves, just see. That'd be a good way to see if we spend any more money on valves. I think Dale's point about maintenance is probably the biggest problem. And putting more valves on there. And if we can't maintain them, and they really aren't doing that much more, that's the key. If they're really not doing much more, then it's just wasted money, in my opinion.
I agree, and I think you saw that there, what's happened. I'm sorry. David,
I've got a question for you. Yeah, could you just tell me what your confidence level is with this approach, kind of solving the problem of these clogging up as long as we maintain it?
I feel more confident as long as you maintain it with the reconfigured riprap. And you can't have one without the other, if you will. You already have valves on there and you see what happened. So if they're stuck shut, it's obviously not letting any more bay water in. However, it's not letting any of the rain runoff out. So if you can keep the sand away from, but also put that, say, $20,000 you would have spent on valves, put that into, a jetter truck to keep them clean, using the analogy of change the oil every 3,000 to 5,000. That's probably money better spent than because you already have valves now, and you see the outcome.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Maintenance, you say regular maintenance. And Bill, I guess this is for you. Do we have the manpower to do the regular maintenance that is being suggested?
No, so we had Public Works Administrator Kevin Williams from the city of Rehoboth come out with Evan Miller, who's the acting town manager, and they brought out their folks that operate their camel truck, and that's the jet that you're talking, it's a camel. It sucks water up or blows water out. They looked at the stuff on Reed Street and said there's too much sand at the end where these flaps are for them to come in and try to jet it out. So they came out, they looked. They'd be willing to assist us going forward, but they said there's nothing they can do until they're completely cleaned out.
Right. Well, they also said they were not a fan of that design either. Did they make a comment about the valves being on the inside chamber? Just didn't make any sense.
But one of those trucks is about $350,000.
I know that. That's very
So
expensive.
we would either
I
have
don't
to
know how
contract
much.
with somebody, or once they're completely open, have Rehoboth come in quarterly and do it and work an agreement out with
Do you
them.
think we can work out an agreement with them to come and help us maintain it quarterly?
Well, they have a new city manager. We could talk to him, and if not, we'd have to hire somebody to come in and do it.
I can tell you Standard Pipe Services does offer that, like a maintenance type of
Okay.
arrangement. They do that all the time, to keep it clean.
But just not on Reed Street. It's going to need to be done throughout the town in different spots. Van Dyke Street, Bayside, it needs to be done down there. And it probably needs to be done in a couple other spots throughout
So
the
we
town.
would be thinking about some sort of an agreement with someone who could come in and do that
It'd
work.
be a regular paying maintenance agreement to
Okay.
get that done.
And
A service
possibly,
agreement.
like you said, like even possibly like a shared, sort of like with.
Yeah, with Rehoboth.
There he is. Jeremy, folks with Standard Pipe Service.
Okay.
No worries.
So it would be, that would be something that would have to be placed in the coming budget. And then every year after that, kept in the budget.
It would be.
So really, if I could, Jeremy, the timing is great. We're talking about Reed Street and the reconfigured riprap and removing the existing 36-inch. And the repair that would be done at the end of the canoe ramp. But one of the things I'm stressing to the town is regular maintenance. After you do that, you still have to keep those pipes clean, especially probably. How often would something like that be done? Twice?
Really, because the more weather you get, the tide comes up, it's gonna bring sand with the water. When the tide goes out, unfortunately, you lose the water, but sometimes you don't lose the sand. So, we're gonna dig it down some, so it'll hold some of that, and then you just have to keep an eye on it, and I'd say at least twice a year.
Yeah, you would probably agree that with the way that layout is, it's almost flat, that pipe that goes out.
Oh,
So there's not enough flow coming off the street to push that sand out of on a consistent basis.
your slope is,
That's what I'm
there's
looking
not a
for.
lot of slope.
Getting old slow.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of head pressure, obviously, to push that out. And I will tell when we were doing the final punch list items, when you guys were on Reed and doing the relaunch, and they were doing, the prior consultant was putting in there, at the end of those 3 pipes, they literally, and I remember going, the gabion, the riprap there, there was no sand. Those pipes were suspended in the bay. I mean, you could see them like with the cages on the front. There was no, now one of them is totally buried.
Well, it was developed that way to have no sand in front of it.
Well, yeah, and our design is to do that again. I mean,
Right.
really dig that down, create almost like a pit or a chamber, and then these series of baffles extended. But to Jeremy's point, you get a good, not all the sand's gonna go back out. So you're gonna, again, that twice a year.
I apologize, I interrupted your.
No. I think it's just elaborating.
Where are we not doing that?
Right now, what they're talking about is removing the flapper valve entirely and just doing the riprap. Not letting any bay water in, but no storm.
Right.
So they're talking about cut and remove the 36-inch flappers out of there now, open it up, reconfigure the riprap with that baffled system and extend. And then monitor that performance, provided that we jet it and keep it clear. After, I would say definitely spring and probably maybe before the winter, maybe those year too. But that's subject to change based on weather. It's all comes down to, I would recommend definitely like in the springtime, like probably before, like we'll call it tax day, by mid-April, you probably want to get out there and jet that out because you've just gone through a winter. Where you get a couple nor'easters come up here.
If the town has it back, right? Or no, they don't?
I don't.
No. Yeah, and
We're just talking
that's
about
something you guys can. The way it's gonna be designed at low tide, you should be able to pull in there and in the directly in front of the pipes, you should be able to just back the sand out, whatever sand's collecting.
So we want to dig that out, create that reservoir or pit area below those outfalls. But what wasn't done before was create those baffles to hang up. But anything that does get in, that would be kept, cleaned out. That's what it's called. That would be jetted, or backed out.
From a design perspective, and again, I don't know anything about it, so when you're digging out and making this pit, can it be designed that almost like a wall, pipe, so that only water from the bay is getting over that wall on a super high tide, but then the water draining from the streets goes into that reservoir?
He's got a picture. The problem with completely blocking it off, I think, is that the riprap is gonna collect its own sediment and sand inside the rocks, and what will happen eventually is it'll turn into a dam. And you don't want that to happen either. So I think the way that we design it would probably be the best way, because you want to allow the water to get out, but you don't. It's kind of channeled where it's got to go in and around and back through, so that it doesn't.
It'll hang up. It'll kind of hang up here and here, and by the time it gets here, most of it's going to be hung up out in the bay, if you will. But again, need to monitor that. And also, it would be designed where, you know, I guess on mean high water, you'll get the tops of these rip-rap walls, if you will, to use your point, would be just below the water line. So you still get water to be able to go over it, so it won't hang up that much. You still gotta let the water go out as well as it coming in. So you don't wanna create a new problem trying to fix an existing problem.
About water comes in here, it fills and it empties out top. And then you only get the flow back in through a rig. High tide. Of that high tide, so the water's not coming in all the time.
So you're talking about an overflow box, almost like on your
There's
pump.
3 pipes, all the rainwater drains into that box. It fills and it dumps at the top.
Problem is that the water elevation is so high there, I mean, it would never go out.
In other words, that would work if that area was dry. It's not. At low tide, I think the pipes are barely out of the water, or maybe about half of the pipe is out of the water. So if that were totally dry, and then only flow to its maximum one time, your idea would work. But because it's already underwater most of the time, you're actually holding the water, not really letting it go.
Yeah, I understand that it would hold it, but eventually as the water flowed in, it would flow out, because it would flow down, right, and flow out.
There'll be a precast box, you'd have to, inflow and outflow holes in the box at certain elevations. And to Jeremy's point, it's mostly underwater all the time anyway.
Bury the box there would work the same way as what he's proposing to do with the riprap. You'd have to dig the box down and keep it empty, and it would do the same thing. It would just fill up with sand over time, and then you back it out, and then so it's
Yeah, again, I don't understand the whole physics of it. In my mind, it looked like it was to be something that would fill to a point high enough over top, and then would have to be forced out. That way you're not getting sand flowing into the pipes.
And it's an outflow, it's an overflow, outflow device, what you're describing, and that does, where that really applies is when you have dry retention or detention basins, where you get that one-time storm, it fills up, and then it gets to a point where it will overflow and then not inundate the downstream areas. It'll slowly percolate back out. That's not really the situation you have here.
I don't think you got enough elevation difference for that to work.
Yeah, it's
For
a
it to be
shame.
effective, you know what I
It's a
mean?
shame, because that's what we get, is we get this rush from storms, rainwater, that's gotta get out, but we don't want the big water.
It's gonna hold it to a point and then dump it out.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, you don't have enough fall, you don't have enough dry conditions to allow that to perform the way you're describing it. That does work, but that's where, like 9 months out of the year, this basin's dry, bone dry, and then you get that flash storm, it fills up, and then it'll get to a certain elevation, and rather than flood the area, then it'll percolate down to the low lying area.
Honestly, that's what the tide gates are designed to do, exactly what you're saying. You know, keep it so that only the water goes out, tide is down.
So if there's a surge coming back from
And
the
then
bay,
when-
they close.
When the tide is up, when the storm surge or whatever, they close and they don't let the water get in. But
I think the problem is valve gas, get the valves, is not enough water pressure.
yeah, because you got mid tide all the time. You know?
Yeah, and then you can get you can get them, Jeremy, the tidal gate, where they're on timers where they'll open and close, but that's a maintenance issue too. So I know one of the things that we discussed was just remove them, because they're failing anyway, and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
And we can look at it down the road and monitor the situation. But to Mr. Cook's point, you're almost flat, you don't have a lot of fall. or slope, as we're
How
calling
much
it.
number?
It's very little, very little. In fact, I remember the elevation, those outfalls are first even in low tide.
If you're removing those 3 valves, are we going to hold on to them in case we want to use them again? Or will they be damaged, or are they already too damaged?
They're pretty rusted. I mean, we'll take them out. If they're salvageable, if you guys want to try to reuse them, we can be careful taking them out, but we're actually going to climb inside and cut them out and get them
Okay.
out of there. Some of what he said, and I've worked on tide gates, all different kinds up and down the coast, so there's all different kinds of tide gates. I know in Delaware City, there's some that we're getting ready to work on that are on timers, like he said, where if there's still an issue after we take them, other than running the power to them, and I mean, they manage for self really, and they would work great. I mean, but you can also do the cheaper ones. The level of sand, and it's not keeping them from opening, then they'll always work. So.
But it,
I think, and we're on a short restraint, we got here by 5:30, so I'd like us to move on to the repair of the Bayard Avenue pump station, and then try to be, and we have a total of 6 or 7 items to cover here.
okay, so with regard to the Bayard Avenue pump station. Bear with me.
Bill, is that the swale wall that needs repair?
Yeah, the wall needs to be repaired and needs to be some cleanup around the pump station. That's a priority.
It's your December 15th letter to the bill.
So with regard to, it was brought to our attention. The 2 wing walls at the Bayard Ave pump station have begun to separate. It was not a monolithic pour. They were, you have the, what I call the sluice box, and they have these 2 wing walls that come off, basically to keep the berm from pump station. Well, those wing walls, if you will, you have the pump, you have the end wall, you have the I guess the box, I'll call it the box, and then there's 2 wing walls that kind of come out like this to keep the earth from, and the berm from sliding into the bed, stabilization. Well, these 2 wing walls were poured, you have a monolithic pour of this box, and then these but these were clearly poured separately. You could tell that the tops were chamfered as if it was a separate pour. Same 6-inch concrete poured wall, but what's happening is they're beginning to separate or slide away like this. And there's a gap, about a 4-inch gap at the top, and then it feeds down to where the foundation is connected. Try to prevent that, and what's happening is with the freeze and thaw, it's just creeping worse and worse. I actually took a photo with my shoe next to the gap, and as wide as my shoe is as wide as the gap.
So this is a given that has to be done, or it's gonna eventually collapse.
It's going to keep pulling away. So what we're proposing to do is putting in all thread and then just basically not pulling it back, but stopping it from continuing. And then putting like hydraulic cement in there to fill that gap in and prevent it from any, or freeze thaw from pushing it further. So we basically want to keep it from continuing. That's our proposal for December 15th.
That's a reasonable estimate?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, I do. What's that, Matt? You want to read it?
We have,
It is cut and dry.
we speak about the stormwater phase one that needs extra completion. Up there, that's the map that was prepared for this, that storm phase one. You got some unfinished business there?
On that one, and I did look at.
Yeah, was that item number C?
Yeah, that was item C.
No. Item number C
You
on
got
the
a map
agenda.
too.
So on item C, and Bill, if you could refresh my memory, please. I think we were talking.
Yeah, for this part, there was one spot that we had not completed yet that needs to be completed for phase one.
Thanks, Jack.
So with regard to that one, Jeremy, this, what we found, this, if,
That's the one that was not connected?
right, if you look, when we learned this when we were on site looking at the read, at the end of read. From 33 to 41, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, perfect.
I think this doesn't exist, and I think what we found out, if I'm not mistaken, is that it drains this way.
So there's a junction box here in the island that's just south of structure 33. So it was buried. We could not find that junction box. So when we saw the pipe coming out, it connected to a junction box, which then in turn connects to 34. All this has already been relined. We presume, when in fact there's a junction box here, our map has to be, this is a dated map. This section of pipe is not here, however, right. So 32 and 33 are there. There's a buried box behind 33 that connects structure 55 through that junction box to 34. That's already been relined. That was taken care of. Bill, this section of pipe actually is not there.
Right.
But here's what does happen. Investigate this. What we're finding out is these structures here, 52, 54, and 41, that's on State Highway Route 1, comes down to actually a storm.
Yeah, it says sewer, but it's not, it's
It
stormwater.
says sanitary, we pulled it. It's flowing stormwater, and we feel this is not here. It actually runs to a storm manhole, which is approximately here, right in front of your town hall. I believe this is now private.
No, it's ours. A
this
company
is-
has bought it, but it's in the state, in the town right away.
So part of that number, which is around $10,000, is to do investigative work, clean this up, televise this line to the storm manhole and see how it ties in down here, because we know for a fact accessible to continue CCTV. This is totally compacted.
While you're doing this work,
What
are
street
you
is
doing?
This is Rodney.
Thank you, okay.
will
I'm
you-
sorry, yeah, ma'am, this is Rodney. Your town hall is right here. There's a
Right,
storm
okay.
manhole right in front of your parking lot. That's what ties this in. This pipe's not here. This has already been done. This doesn't have to be done. In fact, these guys already relined this, and the yellow is no immediate action. In fact, the integrity of the pipe is solid. It's good. This, however, we were never able to complete because we, were not aware of this structure. I don't think the town was until we tripped over it. And B, this is totally full and compacted with sand, debris, gravel.
What do we think happened to the missing pipe? Why is it there but it doesn't,
They failed to put them in, right?
that,
So
how did we not
The pipe
know?
is there, it just, they missed it on the drawing.
No, that one right there.
This
What is-
pipe here?
Yes.
Here's what
Where's
happened.
that? I guess.
Here's why. Because right here on the corner of Reed and SR, there's a nice landscaped area. I don't recall. What is on the corner here?
There was a lawyer's office there, it's been torn down.
Okay, there was a landscaped area. So when we put this up, we could see a pipe here. We did not see, there's a junction box that was buried in the mulch, the landscaped mulch area. We saw a pipe here, did not see the structure. So we came down to 41. We saw a pipe going this way. So we thought, okay, they connected. What's happened though is there's a junction box here, 32 connects to 33, 33 55 to the junction box, and this 34. This is there is a pipe here, and there's a pipe here, but we think this pipe probably does the same thing. And somehow then that connects, we don't know how. They verified that. So, and this was the end of phase 1, which for phase 2, which I know, sir, is on the agenda, we're gonna pick right up where we left. So there is some investigative work that needs to be done here because A, we didn't have good as-built drawings, and B, we weren't able to access a lot of this stuff. And this was marked sanitary, so we didn't investigate it because it was mislaid.
Part of what we've been doing though, as we've been going, is updating the as-bills, right?
You have been doing
Yeah,
this. Okay, good.
we've been, if we find something that doesn't, match what we're given, you know, we make guys aware of it.
You gotta remember, these were put in
A long time ago, yeah.
the state in 83, 81, or
As-built, we got construction drawings, and sometimes what's proposed and what got built,
Not this, I mean,
They
we've
get
got
very
updated.
rarely the same.
yeah, pipe sizes were changing.
Yeah, they find a problem in the field, they make an on-site adjustment, engineering alteration.
But then that doesn't get communicated.
Right, so a lot of this, when we do this investigative work, like right now, you have a data drawing, this is 2 years ago now. This has all been updated and cleaned up. However, this gives us the assessment of where we left off. A lot of this has already been addressed. The only outstanding issues, I believe, are 58 to 47. I'm sorry, now I'm jumping off your agenda. 30 to 59, which is that other outfall, which is near the Lions Club. And then this area here, when we found out there is no pipe there, you would think, but because we didn't know there was a junction box here, we thought it just connected. Factor, this pipe isn't there, it actually comes down here, but didn't have anything to go by. So phase 1, and I know it's on your agenda, went from here to here, basically. Phase 2 is going to pick up here and go all the way down to Anchor Way.
That's your phase 2 that
Right. From SR1 to the bay, from Rodney, which is your current street on the town hall, to Anchor Way, is going to survey, televise, clean, and reline any of the pipes, just like we did in phase 1 for the rest of the township, on the bay side of SR1. Which I know I jumped ahead on your agenda there, sir. That was the phase 2
Okay,
proposal that I discussed with Bill and Jim.
okay.
But there was so much unknown here that's the remainder, which is, it's probably more 10, close to 10. Glad you saw that map hanging out.
so C and D, Jim. C and D are both absolutely necessary and part of the plan anyway, right?
All right.
C and D are necessary and already part of the major,
Yeah,
the overall plan.
That's C up there, and then D is, he's pointed, Kevin pointed out,
Right.
goes to the south,
If I may, I
from
can
Rodney to,
So, this is the entire town of Dewey with an aerial. So, just for reference. So, what we're talking about doing is this area here. This would be phase 2, which is from Rodney all the way to Anchor Way, from Coastal Highway. And then repeating what we did in phase 1, for phase 2, we would survey all of the existing stormwater infrastructure and do it. We would televise it, we would clean it, and anything that's a candidate of pipe that would be. So,
And we will do a better job this time if there's any areas that we identified that can be relined. Like, I know we ran into some issues on the last phase where we had to replace some pipe.
Yeah, that was fine. You guys did a good job on the relining. It was just the end of Reed Street where there was some questions.
Yeah.
Good job relining in McKinley Street. It was good. Redoing the pipe there.
So that proposal for, I think it was, Jim, you had said for the phase two? I think
That's
it was
number, that's D
D.
on the agenda.
Yeah, Dale, thank you. So on D, estimated about 1,800 feet of pipe. We rounded it up to 2,000 just to be sure. That's all inclusive. That included survey, that's GPS location of all your structures, photo ID, the full report. We figured about 2,000 linear feet of pipe in that area that would be in need of relining. So like anything, Bill, if we don't need to spend it, we won't, but the number's already encumbered in there in case you did. And that would complete everything for Dewey on the base side of SR1.
So that's all the way down to D.
Yeah, he's talking about D.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to the remainder of phase one, that's the rock just talking about on the other map. Because we had nothing to go on and non-accessible issues. So around
Sweet Street.
Swede,
Salisbury.
all the way down to like
Bellevue.
good part of Rodney. We're gonna pick up on Rodney again and then go over to Anchor Way, which I know is a, but that's, and by the way, that's on your zoning map. Now,
Right.
too. Anchor Way is kind of labeled.
If it's all right with you, can we then go on to E, Sunset Park?
Okay, we're going to talk about Sunset Park.
So yeah,
Maybe he doesn't know about.
So Sunset Park is, I briefed you, we have 22,300 that we are getting from DENREC to work on the gazebo and put an ADA ramp in there. And Center of the Inland Bays is also waiting to do a project along the coast. They're waiting for EPA to approve the final phase of that. So there's no money that I'm asking infrastructure to recommend to the commissioners for Sunset Park.
You just want to vote
I'm
to
very
move it forward.
pleased to see that memorandum about the grant, because Center for Inland Bays have tried twice to do something with Sunset Park, and they got turned down both times, and I didn't. So it's good news.
Yeah, so this is just $22,000 to do repairs and upgrade the park itself. Center Inland Bays has a huge grant to do the whole coastline around
Yeah,
Sunset Park.
they'd
Yeah.
gone way beyond the
Park, yeah.
Sunset Park.
Yeah, but there is one other item that's not on the actual agenda, but it is in your supporting notes, and that was that sinkhole that we found on Bellevue Street. It was either Christmas or New Year's, it was one of the holidays. I went down and looked at it. We had a citizen called in and said, yeah, it's sinking. We went down, we found it, marked it. The concrete pipe has collapsed, it is failing, and we're gonna need to repair that. It does run across Bellevue, so we're gonna need to, Bellevue, the road itself is gonna need to be brought up. There's a storm drain on one side, a storm drain on the other, and the pipe in between is gonna have to be replaced. That's estimated, I think, at $28,000.
So if I could draw your attention to the area in question here on Bellevue is the 766. I did prepare a formal proposal for Bill. I actually enclosed a map of the same area on the proposal. So it's approximately 70 linear feet of pipe. It's concrete, it had failed. It's in the shoulder currently, but obviously as an emergency repair, it could expand. What that includes is, I believe, the catch basin replaced in kind, repaved, brought back up to elevation.
So as it stands now, with every rain we have, it's going to go down that drain, come out that pipe, and blow more earth away.
Yes, you're gonna get erosion. I would definitely constitute this as an emergency repair.
Right, like 12 inches?
It's a 12-inch, I believe, 12 or 15. No, here's what happened. Everything was lined up to 65.
Right. Didn't cross the street.
Didn't cross the street. You guys lined all the way up to here, This section, of course, is what failed.
Quick question. How do you know it's 70 feet?
I met with one of their guys out there and they measured from one storm drain to the other, but where the pipe is actually collapsed is right now a very small hole, and I'd say it's less than a foot in diameter. But if we don't do something with it, right now I think we have a piece of steel over it. If we don't do something with it, it could get bigger.
Okay.
So it's probably bigger underground than it is above ground.
I don't
Right
know.
now.
Generally, that's how sinkholes behave.
That's right.
And you got a winter coming up, you know. So this price would include to excavate and replace approximately 70 linear feet of 12-inch diameter RCP from catch basin 65 to catch basin 66 along Bellevue Avenue. They backfill and pave that area upon completion, bringing it up to grade. So there was a site visit, like, oh, yeah, the relining went up to 6. That's
Yeah, but
collapsed.
I mean, it's. If it's something we can do internally, we'd rather do that.
We'd definitely rather do it realignment, because that would be a lot, I mean, that'd be half this price, if not,
Faster too.
it'd be much less to realign.
Like the backup. 8 weeks just.
Supply. Now, I will tell you, we color coded that as orange. This was one of those within 2 years, you press it, and guess what the date of this map is? 2/11/2021. So.
Right on time.
It was one of those things like, it didn't have to be done today, but in 2 years, you probably have to look at
That instead of digging it all up, we would much rather have, it's gonna be more cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And lead time of materials is an issue, we're seeing it a lot.
I think I'm sitting on 12-inch liner.
Can you do that? If it's
Raising the crown on New Orleans Street?
Yeah, I briefed that already. We have the funding from the state. We're gonna go ahead and move forward with that when the state starts, when they sign the contract.
Okay.
Don't need anything from you. I just wanted you to know, because it's kind of an infrastructure
Do we
project.
need to worry about that now?
No, you don't need to worry about it now. I just wanted you to know about it,
Just know about, okay,
because it was on my list of my priorities that I provided to you in November.
okay.
And is that the one where Hayden might,
No, that's completely
That's
different. That's a
different.
Chesapeake
Okay.
Watershed grant I was on today on a Zoom call for. I'm trying.
Well, that seems to take care of our work for today.
Well, but we need to,
To accept these proposals and recommend commissioners that they
spend the funds from our, what do you call it?
So our infrastructure budget has a little bit over $600,000 in it right now. Right now, maybe a little bit more than that, but it's right around $600,000 that we have in that budget.
And I make a motion. Sinkhole was item G, because it
Okay.
wasn't originally on.
Right.
I make a motion to accept all the items A through G and to approve the money from our infrastructure fund for the items that the town needs to fund,
Including Bellevue.
including Bellevue.
Altogether, it's almost $130,000 worth of project. Altogether, counting Bellevue. It's almost 130,000. So just so you're aware of that.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to approve all the items. In other words, we're giving our approval to move forward with ones that don't cost us any money, and we're giving our approval to move forward with the ones that are going to cost money.
Recommend to the commission.
You recommend to the
Right.
commissioners, yeah. That's my motion.
I second that.
For a second.
he second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. That concludes our business. I make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks, guys. Thank
Marty,
you, Bill.
adjourn.
Thank you, sir.
I second it.
Back seconds. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.